Next up, we'll be hearing from ANZ and TBWA's discussion of the philosophy of equality at ANZ and how this has informed their marketing strategy and led to the amazing creative campaigns like Equal Future, Gay TMs, and more. Please welcome Alexandria Sloan, the Head of Marketing at Facebook Australia and New Zealand, to introduce the panel.
The challenges still remain around gender inequality in the workplace. Collectively, when we come together and create bold visions for ourselves and really try and change the game, that can be very positive for business.
Anytime, if you think about ideas that have been generated, they come from all different types of people. And do you know what? Over time, it ends up driving great results.
I guess my hope for the future is I've got an 11-year-old daughter. She's awesome right now. But as she grows up, I want her to be able to do whatever she wants to if she works hard at that.
It is important to have female leaders to inspire others to rise up in the ranks as well.
The challenge is how can we enlist our male allies to help us? We know that 3 in 4 Australian men believe in gender equality, but only about 17% know what to do in terms of an action.
Once we acknowledge that it's unacceptable, we'll start to prioritise different discussions and then we'll start making different decisions and choices.
We really want to make sure that people feel empowered, inclusive, and have the courage to have those discussions every single day to create a more balanced environment.
Everyone. First of all, thank you to BNT for their leadership around diversity and inclusion initiatives. It's really important to us at Facebook as well, and I'm really proud to be up here representing Facebook as a partner in these initiatives from the beginning. I've got a really easy dream job today, which is introducing Shweta and the TBWA team, who are going to take us through some really amazing work. These are leaders in the industry who are actively putting messages out in the world about equality, inclusion, diversity, and they're not just talking the talk. In a climate where purpose is being discussed really widely and a lot of companies and brands are almost retrofitting purpose into their marketing campaigns, ANZ Bank has had a strong, consistent message about equality and about where it stands. Equality and inclusion make us all better, and embracing diversity in all of its forms. ANZ are focused on an equal future, and this has been enacted and expressed from the inside out. We're very lucky today to hear from Shweta Mehra, CMO of ANZ Bank, and the TBWA team behind famous inclusion campaigns like Gay TM and Hold Tight, my favourite. They'll share the genesis, the challenges, and the impact that this type of important culture-shaping work can have on internal engagement as well as external audiences. Please welcome to the stage Shweta, Matt Stoddard, and Ricky Meldrum.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. I want to start with a bit of a story because a lot of the work we'll share, frankly, goes well beyond my time, and Ricky and Matt are absolutely the right people to talk about it. I joined ANZ about 2 years ago, and I remember the first day, typically you get bombarded with lots of PowerPoint packs about the brand strategy, bank strategy, where are we making money, where are we making losses, all of that good stuff. And the one thing which was common on all the pages, the first pack, or the first page was our purpose. I hope this works now. Let me try. That one. Okay. All right. And it was not the photograph of our CEO, but it was definitely the line, shape a world where people and communities thrive. You couldn't miss it. It was just deeply integral. In fact, a lot of the material I got was why and how we got to this purpose. And I remember at the end of a long day, 6:15 in the evening, first day, had a chance to spend a lot of time with Shane, and the entire conversation was just about this line. And we spent a lot of time discussing between what does shape means, like why shape, why not help? What do you mean by a world where people and communities thrive? What do you mean by communities, and how do you define communities? Are they regional, are they geographic, are they a particular gender base, all of that stuff? And what do you mean by thrive? And frankly, as I spent longer and longer time in the organization, I realized I was so fortunate to work for an organization which deeply, deeply believes in diversity, inclusion of all kinds, not just gender. And I can say that because I was fortunate to work in another organization, Procter & Gamble, for most of my career, and leading a lot of work on gender diversity, that the way ANZ internalizes and thinks of diversity is at a totally different level. So much so that if you look at what Shane did the first day, and he was grinning absolutely amazingly in this photograph, but his first official duty as CEO was signing for a commitment for women empowerment. But every day, in every conversation we have, when we pull together our events like Mardi Gras, the people in the room are everything from our CFO, our CEOs, our chief diversity, digital officer, they're all there. And it's hard to get all of these guys together in a room, but they will all come together for stuff like Mardi Gras because they deeply believe in it. What is also very impressive, and when I say that at ANZ it goes well beyond gender diversity, is you will see that come through for a variety of communities at play. And this comes again from the belief that if you go to our purpose of thriving communities, core of thriving communities is financial security, and people know how they're feeling good about the money. Core of financial security is opportunities, and core of opportunities is again lying in equal opportunities irrespective of who you are. And therefore, if you look at the kind of programs we do, of course, Mardi Gras is one of the most famous ones, but before that, we had the work on Equal Future. If you look at it, we also run a program which is the longest running program in banking industry globally, apparently, and we came to know this only because we were awarded for it externally, is a program called Money Minded and Savers Plus, where more than 50,000 people have gone through. These are the people who don't even have $500 in the bank account, and we teach them how to save money. And more than 86% of them keep on sticking to saving habits after they've gone through the program. We are very fortunate to have a spokesperson like Dylan Alcott, who brings to life our brand philosophy, that it's not what you have, but what you do with it that matters. And that comes through in everything. So again, really, really the work we do on Equal Futures, or Equal Futures as a platform, comes to life in everything we do. It also comes to life, interestingly, in our boardrooms as well, without making a fuss about it. It was interesting listening to the previous debate, but we were sitting together in our new leadership team for Australia, and more than 50% of are women, but you'll never hear a line about it from ANZ because it doesn't even matter. Not that it doesn't matter, but it's not a big deal because it's so deeply integrated. What I'd love to do now is pass on to Ricky, who'll tell you the story of how TBW has partnered with us to bring all this culture outside. Actually, maybe just before that, I can talk one more slide, sorry.
You do.
I want to talk a little bit about where we've seen the benefit of this, just to capture it briefly. Very obvious stuff. Employee, a lot of external recognition. What you see over there is the latest external recognition we've got. What you see after that, frankly, is our Deputy CEO, Lexis, who's talking about her joy at celebrating the Mardi Gras and being at the event. You see some of the community impact which came through the work from the Equal Futures, and of course some of the work we see from our customer reputation. But the stories which matter every day, and I hear every day, which make me feel most proud, is really the number of people who join the bank and who say, I joined the bank because I believe in what you do, and I've heard stories of what an amazing workplace you are because of diversity and inclusion. Yep.
Thank you. I'm going to go back a little bit in history and tell you a little bit about some of the campaigns we've done, but more about kind of some of the ways that they've come about and the work that we do. GayTMs, I don't think there'd be anybody in this room that doesn't know about GayTMs. When ANZ initially came to us in 2014, they had increased their sponsorship of Mardi Gras from a sponsor to the principal partner, and they wanted us to create a program ad in the festival program to announce this. And we, at the time, thankfully now corporate activism and corporate advocacy is much more common. But at the time, ANZ was an absolute pioneer. And for a conservative organisation like a bank to come out loud and proud and beyond their walls and beyond page 63 of their annual report and really stand up for what they believed in was an incredibly bold move. And we thought that it needed bold a bold campaign to match that. So it literally was, here's your print ad, but it's not a print ad. Here's a little sketch of an ATM with feathers and rhinestones, and let's call them GayTMs. ANZ was amazing, they loved it, and the smartest thing they did is they immediately took it to the head of risk. The head of risk also happened to be the sponsor, the executive team sponsor for diversity, so that was quite fortuitous. And he gave it the green light, and the rest was history. Really, the attention these grabbed around the world within hours was phenomenal. I think, we were lucky at the time that, this Instagram was only really just starting to take off. We managed to convince ANZ to start an Instagram page because this was so beautifully shareable in terms of their imagery. But at the time too, their social media management was 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So we actually manned up with them and said, I think we're going to get a little bit of attention around this. We probably need to manage this. So that was just such a wonderful, brave move and such a wonderful reflection of the history of Mardi Gras, which I don't know if you know, the original rallying cards were out of the pubs and into the streets. So we took our support, ANZ's support for Mardi Gras, literally into the streets through GayTMs. I think the second thing that we have learnt along the way with the work we do with ANZ is that we need to go all in. It's not something ANZ can't just be seen to be coming to the party and having a good time and then leaving. And I think the incredible success of Year One from GayTMs was both an inspiration and our albatross. And I say that because I actually joined 6 weeks after the original GayTM, so I wasn't responsible for that either. But we talked a lot in Year Two about how we were going to avoid second album syndrome. How could we be as big and as meaningful and create the attention for ANZ and what they were trying to do as we had the first year. And I think what we did is we basically listened to the community. Every time we went out, we kind of thought, well, what's going on in the world that we can respond to? And the first year we'd heard lots of call-outs from different towns around Australia saying, I want a GayTM in my town. So Year Two, sure enough, we had a lovely public vote. And Daylesford was the lucky recipient of the only GayTM in the village and the only GayTM that went outside of Sydney for Mardi Gras. Come Year Three, and the environment at the time, the Mardi Gras was starting to attract a whole lot of corporate sponsorships. And there was a lot of cynicism around pinkwashing, and there still today is a lot of conversations around corporate sponsorship and what role it does and doesn't have to play. So at the time, we felt that it was really important that ANZ took the campaign up a level and became even bolder with their out and proud support for the community. And so we actually proposed that they rebrand to GayNZ. And literally, the CEO had cards that said he worked for GayNZ. The internet banking, when you went on there for the period of the festival, was GayNZ. And we took over the branch in Oxford Street, and I think Ant, one of the previous speakers, was talking about how wonderful it was when he sort of stumbled across it. This was a carpet-floored, one of those tiled roof bank branches, very tired, and the whole thing was transformed into a Baroque-inspired homage to queer culture. We had gay penguins kissing, and we had mouse mats, which were wonderful stained glass GayNZ, and it was just a phenomenal show of support for Mardi Gras and for the community in Oxford Street in Sydney. Then in the next year, the context for 2017 was we just had another failed marriage equality proposition, and I think we've had 23 in not so many years. And there was a kind of a sense of where was marriage equality going. And so this time we actually, again, did GayTMs, but we accompanied it with a film. And I know, Alex, you said this was your favourite. And we were urging Australians to hold tight for equality and hold tight to be able to hold the hand of the one that they loved. Incredibly powerful. I remember at the time Facebook reporting back that the conversation around marriage equality doubled in social in response to this campaign. Which then brings us to 2018, and we had marriage equality, yay! We also had the 40th year of Mardi Gras to celebrate, and originally our intent when we started planning and we didn't have marriage equality was to continue and take further steps with Hold Tight. But we felt that that was the wrong thing to do in that environment, and we had to celebrate it. So we kind of came full circle, and we went back to Yay NZ. I'll let Matt tell you a little bit about this campaign when I pass over to Matt for this year. But you can see each year we kind of we responded to what was happening in the community. That brings me to this one. The good thing that we learnt from all the work we'd done with Mardi Gras was that we knew that there would be some negativity. We knew when we went to market that whether it be cynicism around corporate sponsorship through to homophobic slurs, and you know, we had people calling ANZ perverted and disgusting, and just incredible hatred for what ANZ was doing. You know, where are the straight ATMs? Where are the straight ATMs? Well, they're there the rest of the year. But the encouraging thing was how overwhelmingly positive it was, and how the community came out and actually spoke and managed the issue on our behalf. So I think having learnt that, we were prepared in some ways when we went into women's equality. You know, we knew that there would be some negativity. We probably didn't expect the vitriol and the hate that came from some of the men's rights activists around taking a positive stance and positive action towards gender equality, particularly when we're talking about a bank which, as an industry, much like our own industry, doesn't have the greatest reputation in terms of financial equality. I'm going to play the case study video for you, I'm assuming.
Girls leave the education system, their prospects start to diminish.
I think for many men, the problem, the issue, is just unseen.
Million girls worldwide are still denied a primary education.
Women earn up to 36% less than men.
That's the message of a new campaign by ANZ. There's some research out from ANZ.
A new report shows women earn on average
$295 less per week than men. The campaign shows women retire with around half the amount of super as men.
So, what are we to do about it?
ANZ is fighting to close that divide, announcing free financial advice to women with less than $50,000 superannuation. It's also promised to top up their female employees' super each year.
I think other organisations in Australia have got to really consider this issue.
Today, the ANZ is to be commended for taking a bold step in putting some of this data, and it's very compelling, on the table.
So an incredibly bold move for a financial institution to stick their head above the parapet and go out on that platform. And I think at the time when we worked on that campaign, we did say to ANZ, the original brief was to create an online video that would create some empathy with women. They knew that there was, you know, an issue in terms of perception with women. And we presented this idea and then said to ANZ, and I've told Sharita this story many times, that you can't have this campaign until you do something. Yeah. You're not putting this out in market. You cannot point out the problem unless you are part of the solution, and we need a headline. And we were very tough on them, and again, that speaks to the relationship which Matt will talk about. But I think what was important, that ANZ realised they didn't have to be perfect on the issue, and they didn't have to shy away from the issue. They just needed to be showing that they were changing and that the future could be more equal.
And if I can just add to that, very proud of the fact that every year when we look at the remuneration at a certain time of the year, one of the checks we're always doing it for similar levels, similar experiences. Are the women getting paid the same level as the men? Every year that check is done because for some reason we find, even in my 2 years over here, that the gaps come up. So every time we go and correct and make sure there is no gap. So we just...
So walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Cool. So as Ricky shared before, we've done quite a few campaigns around inclusion with ANZ, which have been fantastic. And I think one of the key learnings through all of those is the more we consulted and talked and listened to the community we were speaking of, the better the creative product that came out of it. And this year's Mardi Gras campaign was no different. We had a few things to do, but we wanted to recognise the amazing achievement of the marriage equality vote and marriage equality, and also celebrate the 40 years of LGBTIQ+ pride. So the creative proposition we started with was, we've come a long way, but there's still so much to do. And when we started to explore the still so much to do, we again consulted the community, and we're lucky to have in our building, we've got a lot of people in the community in our own building, and also at ANZ, there's the ANZ Pride Network, which are fantastic. And we also consulted some other organisations and individuals like Daniel Whithouse, who's a rights activist. And the common theme that started to come out from that was that the rural areas are really, really struggling. It's really hard to grow up in the country being gay. So that was the inspiration for this year's campaign, and I'll play the case study for you now.
I love where I'm from. I love North Queensland. It's a really wonderful place to grow up. But there weren't a lot of people like me up there.
The isolation that you feel as a young bloke in the bush back then was deafening.
For over 40 years, Mardi Gras has been celebrated on the iconic Oxford Street, Sydney. But there are 122 other Oxford Streets around Australia.
ANZ has taken a bit of Mardi Gras from Oxford Street to the 123 Oxford Streets around Australia.
So there's 7 in particular, one for each state.
From Bunbury to Port Pirie.
Oxford Street in Mittagong has received a transformation.
Mardi Gras has been unveiled at Berry Springs today.
Popped up at East Launceston.
Mardi Gras love around the country. Yeah. Oh, my favourite's the Hills Hoist. There's a Rainbow Hills Hoist with little rainbow hats and cockatoos sitting on it. Even if you're not in Sydney for Mardi Gras, that there are people out there who are like you and who love you and who support you.
We made sure anyone could visit the signs by partnering with Google Street View and Giphy, so people could Mardi Gras their own. Our sculptures were vandalised, stolen, and even run over. However,
If this is your way of silencing us, we're not going anywhere.
Really quite fantastic.
It's so tremendously important.
The message struck a chord in every corner of Australia, with hundreds of regional publications we'd never even heard of getting behind the campaign and pointing to every single Oxford Street in the country, a 4-ton sculpture at Sydney's Bondi Beach.
There is always a young person that feels isolated, and any way of getting through to them that it's okay to be you is a great thing.
There we go. We also do some great work with Dylan Alcott, which Shweta mentioned before, and he's a wonderful, wonderful person. Right from the start with Dylan, we've always treated him like he's a world-class athlete who happens to be in a wheelchair, and all the creative that we do always plays to that. So for this year's tennis sponsorship campaign we absolutely didn't do anything different. And the great thing about Dylan is he loves to be involved in all the creative. So before we even started doing the brief or the idea, we knew that the proof we wanted to talk about was spending and saving. So we had lunch with Dylan and we spoke to him about what are his spending and saving habits like, and he said that he loves to save for shoes, and we sort of were taken aback instantly, but then at the same time we thought, well, of course, he needs to wear shoes as well, and he quite rightly jokes, he's got over 500 pairs of shoes, but he's never worn a pair out. He says that quite outwardly, which is really lovely. But we did some. But basically all the creative that we did from that was all around his love for the shoes, and it really inspired the main TV ad that we did, which was around that spending and saving habit. And we're going to share with you, actually, before I share the case study we're going to share is actually a 2-year roundup of the work we've done with Dylan the last 2 years for the ANZ tennis sponsorship. So here we go.
When I was growing up as a kid, I'd never seen anybody on TV like me. I used to ask my parents, why is there nobody like me? And for once, I saw someone like me on TV every ad break, and it so happened to be me.
ANZ Bank has sponsored the Australian Open since 2010. After sponsoring Novak Djokovic for 3 years, we decided it was time for a more inclusive representation. So we put tennis champion Dylan Alcott on the same pedestal and celebrated Dylan for Dylan.
How good is that? Whenever someone with a disability is on TV as an ad or anything, it's always the inspirational story, like Dylan had the tumour and then he did it, and we all feel good about ourselves because the disabled guy did something. Not once did they mention that I was in a wheelchair or care that I was in a wheelchair. They were just proud supporters of myself and Australian tennis for everybody. I think that's a powerful message.
I think there's far more representation in the media. I was at the movies today and I saw 3 Dylan Alcott ads before the movie. That was amazing. That's not happened before.
I've told him he's overexposed, to be honest.
I think it's important that people in powerful positions include in our workplaces, in our advertisements, everywhere, people with a disability, so we don't have a Q&A special about disability. It's just a normal part of life.
Your 2019 Australian Open quad singles champion, Dylan Alcott.
This is a wonderful move by ANZ.
Dylan, you son of a bitch.
ANZ, what a brilliant message.
They've turned their handicap into something that inspires a lot of people, including myself.
He's so good that he can make me a pro in like 3 lessons.
It's a blue chip moment in advertising here, the use of a para-athlete.
Dylan Alcott!
And I also want to thank the awesome team at ANZ. When I was a little kid, I used to ask my parents why I never saw anybody like me on TV. And for a kid who's now like me, they would have seen someone like them on every single ad break of the tennis.
Paralympic gold medalist, Grand Slam champion.
The undisputed king, Dylan Alcott.
Why we can do this for ANZ, I think it's, as Shweta and Ricky have both touched on, there's a really amazing client-agency relationship that we have, and we're not afraid to push each other and try and, obviously the shared values that we both share around inclusion, that kind of thing, but to push each other further with the creative, and if the briefs that they give us, if we don't think they are pushing the boundaries enough, we'll go back to them, and they do the same thing with us when we respond with the creative to really go further and do something that's going to have a really big impact. And I think we're also the victims of our own success with the Gay TM campaign and the Gay NZ, because we want to each year do something bigger and better. And I think the Signs of Love campaign we did this year was probably the most audacious of them all, because it was logistically a nightmare, and I don't think if we hadn't have had the relationship that we do, we wouldn't have even suggested it, because it was just 7 or 8 signs in 7 different states that were all being installed over one weekend to be all launched on the same day, all being filmed, all being photographed, and some of them didn't even have permits until that morning. So it was really right down to the wire, but it was an absolute rush. When Ricky and I talk about it, we say it's like going to the dentist. It's painful at the time, but the result is amazing after.
You forgot the film until the day it was aired as well. That morning.
Yeah. So I guess that's why we came.
And I think it's important, with the team that worked on it, and I think there was about 48 hours straight on that campaign to edit it and put it to air. But I had one of the team turn to me after and said that was the best thing they've ever worked on. And it's just because it's such incredible, powerful work and so meaningful that it's such, we sit here so proud, and hopefully you feel as moved as we do by how incredible some of this work is and how lucky we are to have a partner in ANZ that it is just so deeply and genuinely felt, and that they believe in this work, and that they don't just walk the walk and just do marketing, they actually take action.
And if you guys can't see the trophy and you're wondering which award is this that you've never seen and heard before, it is because it's an ANZ award. And this is something we just started this year. We started giving it to, we work with hundreds of agency partners, or, from consultants to vendors and technology and so on and so forth. And this year, for the first time, Shane started giving awards. One for the partner who helped us win most externally, and one who helped us win internally. And TBWA was rightly the first partner that we gave award to, because when you're in the meetings and you're talking any of this work, you can't differentiate between who's the TBWA person and who's the NZ person in the room. You just can't make out the difference. We're all debating, we're all fighting for the same thing with the same intensity. So that's what this award for. The other award winner was BCG. So 2 amazing partners for us.
And then just lastly, I'd like to touch on, obviously Shweta spoke about ANZ's organisational purpose earlier, and creativity that moves the world forward is TBWA's. So when our agency became TBWA Melbourne, we looked at what our creative purpose was. We actually looked at all the work that our staff and basically the work that our staff loves the most, the work that brings people to TBWA, and the work that makes people stay at TBWA. And it was mostly ANZ work, to be honest. It was all the great work we've done for the Mardi Gras and the work also with Dylan Alcott. So that helped lead us to the idea of the purpose of creative that moves the world forward. And that in itself, that can be a big social impact, or it could be something as little as a display banner that's targeted, that can help somebody get their dream home. So there's different scales of the how that can play out. And I think just finally, if creativity is to move the world forward, I think diversity and inclusion are obviously absolutely imperative. That's it.
Thank you.